Wouldn't it be great if you could ask your data anything at any time? Like, how are sales this quarter? How's the new marketing campaign performing? What does the overall health of the company look like? And actually get answers right away with charts and graphics and actionable information. You can with Domo's AI and data products platform. Domo lets you channel AI and data quickly, securely, and innovatively to deliver measurable insights wherever and whenever you need them. Anyone on your team can use Domo to easily prepare, analyze, visualize, automate, and distribute data, all amplified by AI. Domo goes beyond productivity. It's designed to transform your processes, helping you make smarter and faster decisions and drive real growth. All powered by Domo's trust, flexibility, and years of expertise in data and AI innovation. The world's best companies rely on Domo to make smarter decisions. See how Domo can help transform yours. Learn more at ai.domo.com. That's ai.domo.com.
Welcome to Season 5 of the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we talk with enterprise and technology platform leaders about the people, processes, and platforms that make marketing and customer experience successful, scalable, and sustainable. This is what creates an Agile brand. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom, advisor and consultant for Fortune 1000 marketing and CX leaders and teams as principal and chief strategist at GK5A, and best-selling author, keynote speaker, entrepreneur, and Agile certified coach. The Agile Brand podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To sign up for the Agile Brand newsletter and get the latest insights and articles on marketing technology and CX, or to purchase a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, go to gregkihlstrom.com. You can also find all my books on Amazon and other retailers. And now on to the show. I'm here at Opticon 2023, Optimizely's annual conference here in San Diego, California, where there have been a number of exciting announcements, and we're going to go over at least a few of those today. Organizations that have a culture of experimentation are able to innovate more quickly and get to the best ideas by learning both what does and what doesn't work. Today, we're going to talk about how marketers can use experimentation to get the most out of their MarTech stacks, their AI tools, and their collaborations in general. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Kevin Lee, VP Product Strategy at Optimizely. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Greg. Glad to be here. Super excited to be having this conversation.
Yeah. Well, I'm having a lot of fun so far here. So why don't we get started with you giving a little background on yourself as well as your role at Optimizely?
Sure. So as VP of Product Strategy at Optimizely, currently look after the portfolio strategy across the board. We obviously have a lot of solutions spanning across content, across commerce, across experimentation. So, being on stage with red shoes aside, day job is to look after a long-term strategy. So looking out quarters to maybe 1-2 years out. Came into the company via an acquisition of a startup that did content recommendations, so using natural language processing. So not a stranger to AI. This is before AI became whatever it is today.
It actually existed before 2023.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
We didn't just invent AI in 2022. And then I actually was really busy with a lot of M&A stuff. So we've obviously, Episerver acquired Optimizely, we've rebranded the whole company, we acquired a CDP along the way, we acquired Workflow, which is Welcome along the way. So was leading a lot of the product due diligence there from an M&A perspective and sort of building that overall product strategy. And now super excited to see everything come together and obviously launching new products as you heard on main stage today.
Yeah, great. So we're going to talk about a few things today, but let's start with experimentation. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, experimentation is a powerful tool for marketers when it's embraced from a cultural standpoint, a marketing standpoint, as well as a technology one. But depending on the organization, any of these aspects can also get in the way. What are some of the things that hold marketers back from more experimentation or even better experimentation from a team culture level? And what role do leaders and managers play here?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So culture is one of those things that's really, really hard to solve because it fundamentally involves so many different people. And experimentation, I sort of gave this example previously as well. Like experimentation is one of those things where it is a collaborative effort out of the gates. You can't be one person doing experimentation. Even the demo this morning in keynote, we talked about it. It involves marketing, involves product, involves design, involves legal, involves compliance. I talked to a customer from financial services right after. He grabbed me. He said, "Hey, I've been trying to solve this workflow problem when it comes to building a culture of experimentation." And he's been hacking solutions together using spreadsheets, using approval chains, using email. And he's like, "Yeah, 7 people need to approve a single change before it goes out." And so without the right tools, things fall apart super easily. Teams can't get done. They don't know what's actually happening. You have executives who then say like, "Hey, what's this thing doing on my homepage? And why am I caught off guard by it?" And entire team's like, "Oh, we've been experimenting." So people are on the same page. There's no visibility, and it's really, really hard to build that culture of experimentation. And then it's a domino effect. I think that the organization suffers because it's a heck of a lot easier to just make the call. And it's like, yeah, I'm a executive. Our CEO Alex referred to it as HIPPOs, the highest paid person's opinion, just to make the call. And so like, let's go with this thing. And as a whole, I think organizations suffer. So it is super hard when it comes to that, and that culture piece of it, the workflow, how people actually get things done. That's one of the biggest problems that we're obviously trying to solve when it comes to experimentation.
Definitely, yeah, and I've been there with the spreadsheets and the multiple tools trying to cobble together the right solution. So how about from a technology perspective, where are a lot of marketers constrained, and how does having the right experimentation tool make the difference here?
Yeah, so I think having the right experimentation tool makes all the difference. As I just mentioned, experimentation is one of those things that requires a whole lot of different people to play their roles. What marketers mean in this case could actually be a bunch of different things. You could have someone who's in visual design who is deciding whether a button should be red or green or changing an image. A marketer could be someone who's actually designing the experiment, having a hypothesis driving the overall program forward. A marketer could even be, front-end developer sitting inside of a marketing team who's actually building out some of those sophisticated changes. And I think for each one of those personas, they have different needs. And so having the right tool to say, to check all the boxes, to say, hey, is there a easy interface to build all of those changes? Great. Does it have the right performance and latency trade-offs so you're not slowing down the site when you're running experiments? Does it have sophisticated statistics underneath the hood so that you're actually getting results that you're actually confident in? Does it have integrations with other tools that you're using, for example? Does it go into in-app? So there are a whole lot of these different considerations, and I think having the right tool, having the right capability makes a very big difference. And obviously at Optimizely, we invest heavily, and for us, experimentation isn't, like I mentioned earlier, a single person's job. It's a whole entire team building out this culture of experimentation. So for us, it is about hitting across those things. When I talk to our head of product management for experimentation, I'm like, hey, who's our one persona? The response I always get is, we don't have one persona. We have multiple personas, from marketing to product to data and analytics, that really care about this. So having the right tool makes obviously a huge difference.
Yeah. And so you touched on this a little bit with the statistics, but what about data and access to the right data? What role do they play in experimentation, and what do marketers need to do to make sure that they have the data they need to validate their experiments from the start?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of different phases of experimentation. At the beginning of it, you actually have a lot of times in experimentation where personalization comes in. So you want to target your experiment at a specific cohort of users, right? So you don't want to launch it to everybody. And so how does the data come in? And maybe that's from an Optimizely product or Optimizely data platform. Maybe it's from your existing CDP. Maybe it's something that you want to do account-based targeting from reverse IP vendors. Like, again, whole host of things. So that's the upfront piece of it in terms of using data to drive experiments to the right intended group of people. Then there's data in terms of, while the experiment is running, how do you make sure that you haven't set up something incorrectly? Right. So we have a tool called sample mismatch ratio, where it automatically detects like, hey, did you set this experiment up incorrectly? Is there an allocation problem? But then also there's the flip side of this, which is if you wanted to use a multi-arm bandit, for example, it will dynamically shift the traffic allocation to the winning variation in order to get you a quicker statistical significance, right? So that's like what's happening while the experiment is running itself. Then finally, the analysis piece of it, we obviously offer great out-of-the-box tooling to give you confidence intervals, to tell you whether or not you're winning or losing. But there are also a lot of customers who say, beyond that, I would like to get the data out of your system to do further analysis in my own infrastructure, in my own platform. So these are very sophisticated data and analytics teams that want the raw data as well, and we're happy to give it to them. So across the board, data plays a critical role. Like at the end of the day, if you were to really think about it, experimentation is a data generation exercise.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're doing, right? You are trying to generate data to answer a question, which is a hypothesis. And that's a tool. If people are like, hey, what's experimentation? It's like, it's a data generator. Like that's what it is, right? What's the data for? To answer questions that you're gonna ask the system. Like that's the whole point.
Yeah. So,
Wouldn't it be great if you could ask your data anything at any time? Like, how are sales this quarter? How's the new marketing campaign performing? What does the overall health of the company look like? And actually get answers right away with charts and graphics and actionable information. You can with Domo's AI and data products platform. Domo lets you channel AI and data quickly, securely, and innovatively to deliver measurable insights wherever and whenever you need them. Anyone on your team can use Domo to easily prepare, analyze, visualize, automate, and distribute data, all amplified by AI. Domo goes beyond productivity. It's designed to transform your processes, helping you make smarter and faster decisions and drive real growth, all powered by Domo's trust, flexibility, and years of expertise in data and AI innovation. The world's best companies rely on Domo to make smarter decisions. See how Domo can help transform yours. Learn more at ai.domo.com. That's ai.domo.com.
one of the things that I really enjoyed hearing about this morning was the collaborative experimentation that the product allows. And so, I think this goes back to this culture of experimentation that the leaders, the brand leaders that we know that we talk about when we talk about experimentation, case studies, all those things, they have collaboration in this. So, just curious, how are brands that are leaders in this space democratizing experimentation to make it more effective, and how do the right tools help here?
Yeah, so for us, we look at it in terms of experiment velocity. So how many experiments do you run on a monthly basis? It's our sort of North Star metric when it comes to experimentation. Obviously, it's super closely tied to customer value, customer adoption. But that's not just a metric that Optimizely made up. I think Jeff Bezos was famously credited with saying, the success of Amazon is directly correlated to how many experiments they actually run. And obviously, not all brands operate at the scale of Amazon, but I think all brands aspire to operate at the scale of Amazon. So there's definitely this correlation to say the more experiments you can run, which also means the more data you're using to drive your decisions, and the faster you can eliminate losing ideas and putting more money behind the winning ones. It's a resource allocation problem. The more successful an organization can be. But the barrier to experiment velocity is just the absolute nightmare of workflow. Like, how do I even get things done? Like, that becomes the challenge. Yeah. And so for us, when we looked at this and said, well, wait a second, we have a best-in-class tool in our CMP, which does workflow really, really well. You can have flexible workflows, you can have rigid workflows, you can bring external systems, you can have different users. And workflow is one of those tricky things where it always looks super simple,
right,
but it is like deceptively complex. I know you spent a number of years in content operations. It's how to get a single thing be approved, how do you get a single thing to be translated in different regions, et cetera. When it's well done, it's like, oh, this is super simple, right? But you dig in under the hood, it's like, wow, this is very, very complex. It's like that classic iceberg type of visual. Yeah. Workflow is the stuff that you don't see underneath the ocean surface. So for us, it's about taking that best-in-class and like, we solve workflow. And we have, a recognized leader in that space to take that to experimentation. And a couple of months back, we launched a beta program for experiment collaboration, which is what we announced this morning as being generally available. That's the whole idea. We have workflow, we have experimentation. It doesn't take a genius, honestly, to put those two things together. And our workflow product was already mature and sophisticated enough for us to tailor that to experiment-specific use cases. Things like, step one, generate a hypothesis. You'd be surprised at how many companies just jump straight into what my variations are without documenting and articulating. What is it that we're trying to prove here?
Right.
Are we trying it for more conversion rates, lower bounce rates? Those could lead to two very different things, right? So enforcing those specific workflows, I think makes a very, very big difference. And so that's essentially what we've done, and we're super excited about it. Our customers are too. We've literally had the customers thanking us for including them in the beta program.
That's great.
So it's one of the most successful betas that I've seen it in recent memory, and it's great.
Nice.
Before we continue, I'd like to introduce you to a sponsor of the show, Partner Hero. Customer service outsourcing has long been available mainly to large enterprise businesses with long-term contracts and onerous procurement processes. Partner Hero is challenging business as usual and bringing the benefits of outsourcing to small and medium businesses as well as startups. With short, flexible contracts and fast ramp-up times, Partner Hero is making customer support outsourcing a viable option for small and medium businesses and startups. It's perfect for companies with seasonality expecting a temporary spike in volume or that simply need to scale up. And their focus on quality means your customers will get an experience that feels like it comes from your team. If you're ready to bring in outside customer support help for your company that feels like it's part of your existing team, check out Partner Hero. Head on over to partnerhero.com/agile, that's partnerhero.com/AGILE, to book a free consultation with their solutions team. Mention you heard about Partner Hero from the Agile brand and they'll waive the setup fee. Now let's get back to the show. So as you mentioned this morning, it's 2023, so we're going to talk about AI. So let's talk about that. I have a few questions here. So AI is certainly top of mind for most, if not all, marketers today, and really many others in the org as well. Let's talk a little bit about first the impact that it has on experimentation. So, how has AI already played a role? Because again, it didn't just get invented in 2022, but how has it already played a role in how experiments are conducted with marketing?
Yeah, I think sort of similar to the data question. I like to a lot of times ground us to your point. We didn't wake up in 2023 and go artificial intelligence.
GPT invented
where have you guys been? It's been around, and so. And at the end of the day, if we were to peel back the hype from AI, it is about data, right? So earlier I kind of talked about the role of data in terms of, all right, we potentially need to bring in segmentation data to target experiments to the right users. Well, guess what? That's a great place to use AI, and our customers do that today. So we offer out-of-the-box capability for predictive segments. So in a sort of commerce retail example, Optimize the Data platform can say, give me a cohort of people whose predicted time to next order is within the next 7 days, let's say, right? So that's using AI to model everybody in the database and actually say, oh, you know what? These 7,000 people are predicted to make a purchase. Let's run an experiment directly at them. So that's a good example of data in the front. While data is running, we have multi-arm bandits. I sort of already talked about this, which is using AI to dynamically allocate traffic towards the winning variation. So that's about using AI to conclude experiments faster, which then also drives for greater experiment velocity. So it ties back into that flywheel and makes that a lot more powerful. And then stuff that you saw on stage this morning, right? So setting up an experiment, maybe you're doing a call to action, and you don't know what to think about. You're staring at it. It's the same blank page problem when it comes to blog posts. It says hidden gems, but should that be make sure you don't miss? Should that be check this out now? What should the call to action be? So we're putting out a feature for using generative AI for call to action generation, specifically in experimentation. So those are a few examples of this, but obviously many different applications kind of going forward too. So really looking forward to those things.
Nice, nice. And so one of the big introductions at Opticon this morning was to Opal. So why don't you tell us who Opal is and maybe explain a little bit more. I know you touched on some of the AI things already available, but how AI can enable more effective testing, content creation.
Yeah, great question. So we announced Opal this morning. It's our overall identity for anything AI related. Very importantly, it is not a who, it is a what.
Okay.
Because we made a very conscious choice to not name it after a person.
Yeah.
And the rationale for that is Opal obviously is a gemstone. And depending on the angle that you look at it, the color will actually change. And so that's how we envision AI as well, in terms of it having different purposes and having different use cases as you interact with AI within our software today. Another sort of overall design philosophy, another product strategy piece of it is really for Opal not to be another product. Yeah. So I have that question come after I got off stage. People are like, oh, is that a new product? It's like, no, it is the identity for everything that we've historically done with AI and also everything in the future as well. But what it should do is it should be seamlessly embedded inside of your existing workflows. We want it to show up where the practitioner needs it, and not not turn everyday practitioners into being like an AI specialist. Yeah. It should augment what you're actually doing and be as non-intrusive as possible and be right there at your fingertips, right? That's kind of how we're envisioning. It should be augmentation. You hear, Dan Soroka talking about Rewind on the keynote stage as well. He's like, hey, AI is the superpower. It's going to augment what you do, not replace what you do. And so for us, we absolutely take that overall philosophy to heart.
Yeah, that's great. Are there, what do you see coming down the pike as far as AI being used for testing, for content creation? What should marketers be paying attention to?
Yeah, I think the bookends of this stuff I think is interesting. So obviously on the front end, how to generate a hypothesis becomes really interesting. So the variation generator piece of it becomes, I think, a first step out of many in terms of how we can generate a good hypothesis. Like, could we plug in our CDP into it and say, hey, did you know that there was a fall off at this part in the customer journey? Can we proactively surface that piece of it? There are other interesting use cases in terms of, could we have a chatbot-like, and I put in air quotes, this is a podcast, people can't see me with air quotes, chatbot-like experience for things like accessing our documentation, right? Could we educate customers and answer questions in a much easier way? Could we have that be an augmented interface towards experimentation? So you have so you're asking questions rather than going towards specific ones. So those are some of the areas. And then on the back end as well, there's a whole lot of statistical methodologies, statistical models in terms of how you can play around with the data to provide infinite drill downs into different segments when it comes to results, or even be able to say, hey, I want to run different what if scenarios, et cetera. So those are all applications where AI can really help. So really, in the before, during, after stages, just like data becomes one of the key things powering a lot of this stuff. That AI, just sits right on top of data.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of to your point, it's more of a...
The reality is striking. While we can stream movies on demand and order anything to our doorstep within a click, healthcare interactions often feel needlessly complex. Healthcare marketers, this one's for you. In Shop, Stream, Heal, author Adeline Ashley shares actionable insights from industry leaders like Netflix, Amazon, and Delta, showing how healthcare can thoughtfully adapt their winning strategies. This isn't about technology for technology's sake. It's about making healthcare more accessible, intuitive, and human. Drawing from real-world successes and lessons learned, the book shows you how to create healthcare experiences that truly meet patient needs while preserving clinical excellence. Shop, Stream, Heal by Adeline Ashley features a foreword from Dave O'Flanagan, CEO of Sitecore. It's published by the Agile brand and now available in print and digital formats on Amazon. Go to shopstreamheal.com for more information.
It's more of a horizontal thing than a vertical thing. I mean, that's how I think about it, at least as far as to your point about not making Opal a separate product. It's a throughput to everything, because I think that's how the smart people that are thinking about AI right now, that's how they're thinking about it, as opposed to I use AI for 20 minutes of my day and then I use my human brain for the other 7 hours.
Yeah, exactly. It's about augmentation, right? It's like it should just be there, and much like workflow, which is an earlier topic. Like good workflow should be seamless. Like good AI should also be barely there, but you are enjoying the benefits of it, right? I mean, how many times do you think about like spell check? Guess what? That's AI.
Right.
Autocorrect in text messages. You don't think about those things, but that's AI, right? So like it's all of those things that I think that people are just like very comfortable with from a consumer scenario. But like, why does it have to be hard for enterprise scenarios? Like it's the same. We're humans at the end of the day. So how do we have AI help us in our daily lives?
Absolutely. So last thing I want to talk about is just how to think about prioritizing experiments. So we talked about culture of experimentation. We talked about technical and data aspects of it. But when you have the right tools in place to do experimentation, it becomes a lot more streamlined to start an experiment. But there's still the question of what do we test, and what should be tested to make the biggest impact. So the easier the experimentation becomes, the more possibilities it opens up. But then again, the idea of prioritization becomes more important. So how do you recommend that teams look at prioritizing their experiments in terms of timing, resources, impacts, et cetera?
So if I could wave a magic wand, I would want every company to experiment with fairly large ideas, because there's some. I mean, if you change, for example, one image on one page or one single call to action, that's never going to drive the impact that you expect it to be. Even though everyone's like initial use case is like, oh, we could change the button from red to green. Right. I mean, take a step back. Is that going to influence conversion rates? Like, no.
Yeah, you would need such a large volume to even. Yeah.
Right. Like, sure. I think there was a famous example where I think Google picked the right shade of blue or something along those lines.
50 shades. Or
right, and that was like, oh, cool, a couple of $100 million of revenue. But again, back to my earlier point, like not all like great. Like if you're Google, you get to do that.
Right.
But if you're not, the degree of change that needs to occur has to be big enough to matter.
Yeah.
Right. So we've had a lot of success with customers who really want to test differences in the customer journey itself. Like, oh, our existing checkout process is 3 steps. What if we did 2 steps? You heard Dan talk about it this morning. His example for his new startup was on his pricing page, should they offer premium support or the CEO's cell phone number, which is actually his number. If you go on his page, it's like actually what it is. So, right, it's a large enough change that correspondingly drives more business value. I mean, it's basic math for how ROI works, right? Like the bigger the change, the bigger the return. And the important thing is with experimentation, a lot of times I think people are scared to make big changes. But that's also where growth comes from, right? Like you can't expect to do the same thing over and over again. What are you doing tomorrow? Same thing we're doing today. Okay, well, why do you magically think that things will be 20% better today when you haven't done anything differently?
Absolutely.
Right? So I think it is about really prioritizing bigger ideas. Don't bet the farm on everything, like obviously, but I think in general, when it comes to a culture of experimentation, folks tend to be a little too conservative, where the variation is not big enough to matter.
Yeah.
But when you have big things, you need more people involved, more approvals. Guess what? That's where collaboration comes in. That's right. We come full circle.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, thanks so much for joining the show. One last question before we wrap up. I know we're in day 2 of 3 here, so got a little more to go in the show. But what's your biggest takeaway from Opticon so far?
So far, I mean, other than the best product ever.
Of course.
I'm just kidding. I think it's an exciting time for Optimizely. We've done a lot in the past few years. It's super exciting to be able to share the innovations across the board. We were in a situation where we have to actively think about hey, what could we fit into the keynotes, and then what are all the different things in the sessions. Had great feedback from customers so far, which is honestly the most important thing. We work with some of the world's largest brands. I've had people literally walk up. It's like not just a, hey, good job, but like, oh, that was super interesting. Like, how do I get my hands on that? Nice. And I think honestly, at the end of the day, like that's why we're in the technology business. Like it's moving so fast. We're thinking about those things, and whether it's AI, whether it's content management, experimentation, commerce, etc. These are just all exciting areas to be in, honestly. And I mean, there's never a dull day in technology, right? So that's the good thing. And I'm just super excited for this journey. And again, thank you for being here and also inviting me on a show to go talk about this stuff. Obviously, very passionate about it.
Well, obviously, I think it's fun too. So it's great stuff. Well, again, I'd like to thank Kevin Lee, VP Product Strategy at Optimizely, for joining the show. You can learn more about Kevin and Optimizely by following the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.gregkihlstrom.com. That's GREGKIHLSTROM.com. To get a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, visit my website, or you can find it on Amazon or other retailers. The Agile Brand is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Until next time, stay agile.